Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. And of course, as you know by now, this is the show where we promote the lean agile mindset, where we learn, unlearn, and relearn. And of course, where we want to be awesome and wholesome together. Now, today I'm particularly excited because we have an accomplished professional on the show today. And our topic today is critical moves for professional and personal growth. And to do justice to this topic is Adesola Harold Orimalade, Chair Board of Trustees, Citizens Advice, Redbridge. I'm going to welcome him to the show. Hello, Harold.
Hello, Mary. Pleased
How
to
are
meet you.
you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary. Thank you for investing your time with us today. Like I always say, I don't take it for granted because your time is the most precious gift you can give anyone. So you're welcome to the show. Now, how have you been faring given all this COVID, pandemic? How have you been?
I have been well. I think one of the things that has come to my mind is the fact that if you had told me December 2019 that we would have experienced what we've gone through in the last 12 months plus, I probably would have said, no, I don't think so. And it's been a learning experience for me, really. But yeah, I'm keeping well.
Good. And indeed, I was saying in a conversation the other day, even the risk analysts could not have predicted this. I don't think any risk analyst could have predicted the extent of this pandemic and, the aftermath, of course. Now, let me introduce you to our guest properly because I have your bio. Now, Adesola Orimalade is an innovative, solutions-focused and dynamic senior finance professional. He is recognized throughout multiple industries worldwide for his treasury and financial management expertise. He has delivered exceptional results for Bank of America, the Royal Bank of Scotland, Hugh Robinson Group, and other prestigious organizations globally. He holds a postgraduate diploma in commercial law from the University of Derby and a BSc in estate management from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, as well as several qualifications and membership in the treasury and financial domain. A published author and avid writer, Adesola enjoys writing for children and young adults. His play, titled The First Lady's Poultry, was published in 2018, followed by a coloring book aimed at very young children, titled Fruits and Vegetable of the World Coloring Book. Fruit and Vegetable of the World Coloring Book. Adesola enjoys volunteering, and he is currently doing just that for 4 charities. Now, for a busy man like you, 4 charities, that is a lot. How do you make time for that? That is a lot.
It is, and thank you for the introduction. Sometimes you have to hear people talk about you for you to actually think about the journey that you've been on. I think for the 4 charities, for me, it's not so much about how many charities, it's about the passion that you have and the interest that you have to give back. For me, it's all about giving back to society and enjoying the fact that I'm volunteering. And really, that's why I do what I do.
Fantastic. Now, our topic today, critical moves for professional and personal growth. Now, when you see successful people, it's easy to say, oh, they were lucky or they had a platform. I mean, people will tell you all sorts. Oh, he was lucky or she was lucky. Or people think you were successful overnight. Many a time, people don't actually see the effort, what goes on, in the kitchen, so to speak. The effort we put in, all the critical moves, all the midnight candles that we burn and stuff like that. So today, as an accomplished professional, obviously, I would want you to share some of your experiences with us, especially for our young viewers. So I have, I believe I have a first question for you. But before you answer that question, Being assertive is a personal attribute that we need for success, both in our personal and professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And the popular quote by Henry Ford supports that assertion. If you think you can, or you think you can't, you are probably right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, your dad equally shared positive affirmations with you that you could be anything you set your mind to. I mean, that just goes to show that it's important as parents that we, use the right words, if you like, to encourage and motivate our children. So here's my first question to you. How will you say you have asserted yourself? As a mentor, how would you help a mentee to be assertive?
Thank you for that question. I think for me, being assertive is all about communication. It's the way we communicate, is the way we approach issues, and it's the way we deal with people that we meet in our journeys in life. None of us is born as assertive. There are things we learn. Either we learn them directly, we learn them from experiences that we've gone through, or simply by talking to people who point out to us, like mentors, right, like colleagues, like managers, about things we need to improve on. And for me, like I said, it's a lot to do with communication. It's about setting your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's about knowing how to relate with people without coming across as being aggressive or insensitive. It's also about listening, because unless you are a very good listener, it's very difficult for you to not come across as being insensitive, as being judgmental, as being aggressive. So you have to learn how to listen. And the other thing again is also it comes with experience. It comes with, you get things wrong in your career, right? This is about talking to mentees. You will get a lot of things wrong in your career. And there'll be times when you will be quite quick to jump to judgment or to respond. And you will learn over time what is the right way for you in terms of how to be assertive and learning that. But there's also a book that I find very, very interesting. And it's a book that I read from time to time. Again, none of us is perfect. And it's a book called, I think the title of the book, I think I have it here, is called Develop Your Assertiveness. And it's a very interesting book. I would recommend for people to get it and read. But it's really, again, for me, it's about communication. It's about setting your boundaries. It's about knowing how to relate to people. It's about listening. And it's also about developing yourself, getting the right knowledge, and knowing how to deal with people, especially if you're a leader in your career.
Okay, so what if you're a young professional? What is that one thing? I mean, I've heard you talk about communication. You've talked about listening, and listening is so critical. Not a lot of us listen very well, to be honest with you, because most of the time we're not listening to understand, we're listening to respond.
Yeah.
For the most part, we're listening to respond. We're just waiting for that person to finish, and then we can just butt in, as opposed to actually listening to understand and to be able to respond productively. Now, if you had a very young professional come to you saying, how would you encourage them to be assertive?
Well, some of the things I would say to them, I've already mentioned. One of the key things I would say is about developing that approach towards listening.
Okay.
Sometimes when we are in the office space, for example, we think we know, and we want to jump straight to an answer, right? Or when we present our issue, we are not giving room for others to disagree with us, because it's also about respecting the opinion of others. So you have to be in that place where you can respect the opinion of others, but at the same time listening to them. So it goes side by side. But one key thing I would say is learn the art of listening. Learn art of listening. Learn how to respect the opinion of others who disagree with you. And sometimes it's about giving yourself room to think before you respond. You don't always have to respond immediately. Not everything requires an immediate response. But a lot of things come with time. A lot of things come with experience. A lot of things comes with coaching and training.
Fantastic. Let's see what our audience are saying. Do we have any questions here? Okay, someone is cheering you on here. Victoria is saying hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Okay. My second question. Now, this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
You left Nigeria at a great point and level in your career for the UK. You practically started all over. Why was it so important to continue your career in the UK?
I think that's a very good question, and it's a question that is very loaded. And I hope you allow me to step back to give you a bit of context to my response.
Please do that. Please do.
And you've touched on something earlier. So when I was growing up, I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in what you call a medium income family. We were not rich, but we were not poor either. My late dad was a civil engineer, and my mom was a midwife. And just to give you an idea, where I was born used to be a tenement house. If you know Nigeria, where you know what they call face me, I face you. Okay, so you have the families. It's a multi-family accommodation.
Okay.
And in those days, before we got our own TV, you go to the local repairman who repairs TV, and that's where all the kids would sit and watch. And you watch all these programs from abroad. You know, if you were born in those days, you kind of understand. Nowadays, everybody has a TV. It's very difficult to understand that. And then you see all these pictures of places abroad, and you begin to, imagine a different life for yourself. But also because my dad was a civil engineer working for the federal government of Nigeria in those days, they used to have a lot of engineers coming in from abroad, especially from the old Eastern Bloc. So Poland, USSR, as they were called in those days, Czechoslovakia, they used to come in. And during the summer holidays, my dad would take me to work. So I met some of these engineers, and I was very inquisitive as a young man and extremely creative in those days. So I began to get this sense that I wanted to work abroad. And my dad used to tell me that you could be anything you want to be. You could be anybody. Color of your skin didn't matter. And that was strange for someone in those days to talk like in that way. But because he had so much contact with them, he never felt any complex. And that was the feeling I had talking to these people. And I remember, I think I was about between 6 and 8 years. There was an engineer then, a Polish engineer called Dr. Duzel. And he just loved me because I was always asking him questions whenever I'm in the office. And I remember his last assignment in Nigeria was going back, and he asked my dad, can he take me along with him? And my dad said, no, I can't leave him, because that was his last assignment. I mean, I guess then my dad thought he would never see me again. And that was the kind of background that I had. So I started building up this desire to relocate abroad. And that never left me. That desire never left me. But in those days, you couldn't come abroad without having a firm job offer. And it was difficult to get a job offer from Nigeria. Right? That was before you had the internet, before you had Google. So, to even be seen at all was very hard. So I thought my time had passed. And I went on with my career, and I moved on with my career. But that desire never left me. And then Canada started this immigration process. They started allowing immigrants to come in without necessarily having a job. So I applied. But in those days, it used to take years and years and years for that to go through. So I was waiting for this to come through when the UK introduced highly skilled migrant visa. And I thought, you know what, this is time for me to go and do what I wanted to do. And my dream was to either work in places like New York, Singapore, Hong Kong. That's where I wanted to work. And when this opportunity came, I thought I would go for it and see what comes out of it. And it's my desire to progress my career. Is that desire I've always had as a child to test myself outside Nigeria, to push my boundaries that made me come. And you were right, I had a very good job in Nigeria. I remember when I went to tell my CFO then in Starcoms that I wanted to leave, the first question he asked me was, do you want more money? Let me increase your salary to stay. And I said, no, there's a passion in me that I need to deal with. And if I don't follow this passion, I would never feel fulfilled. And that is the background to my journey of coming abroad. And yes, I had to start all over, but it was a passion that I had, even as a child.
Wow. And what did that feel like, starting all over? I mean, obviously you were pursuing a passion, you were pursuing a desire, but what did you feel when you had to maybe step down a level or two,
It depends on how many hours you have. because that's a separate story on its own.
Okay.
But when I came here to the UK, I was very open-eyed, right? I didn't come here thinking that the streets were paved with gold, and I was going to come in here and become an overnight success. Yeah. But I suppose that's sometimes the difference between staying and leaving after a while, because I was mentally prepared for the challenge and for the journey. So when I came, and I came to London and I was looking for a job, and even though I worked for Citibank and I worked for Standard Chartered Bank, these were global names, I was constantly told I didn't have UK experience. And I couldn't get a job in the bank in the UK. And then ultimately I went up north because I was told that Northerners are friendlier than Southerners.
Okay.
And I went up north and I managed to get into first Marks and Spencer in their finance. Then I went to work for a company called Universal Utilities, which was telecoms in finance. And then ultimately I got into ABN AMRO. Okay.
So you followed through and you eventually got at least something that, I mean, it wasn't like it was too low. I mean, to work with the financial department seemed something you were familiar with anyway. Okay, yes. Let's see. I'm not sure if we've got comments here or just questions. Okay, someone saying hello. Yes, hello, Harold. Our audience are saying hello. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. Okay. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you very much, Agatha. It is Mother's Day indeed. Yes, thank you very much. And as always, thank you all for showing up. I really, really appreciate you. Now, let me move on to my third question. And I have a context to that as well. With a solid foundation in formal education, you have gone on to achieve a great professional track record. But today, organizations like Google, IBM, Bank of America, etc., now say a lack of traditional college education is no longer a barrier because book smart don't necessarily equal strong work ethic, grit, or talent. It would also appear that the traditional institutions have been slow to catch up, resulting in a disconnect between what organizations are looking for and the graduates universities are churning out. Now, what will you say to young people today who feel the formal education sector is not for them for whatever reason? What would you say to them, given the context I have just shared?
I think, obviously, given my background, I'll be very honest that I'm very biased towards getting higher education.
Me too.
And I'll put that in context. What I mean by that is, one thing I'm always quite mindful of when I talk to young people is none of us, absolutely none of us, no matter how knowledgeable and experienced we are, can predict what the future would require. We sit here and we think in 5 years' time, this is what would be relevant. In 10 years' time, this is what will be relevant. And your career is something that will stay with you all through your life. It's not something that you do for a few years and then you drop it and move on to other things, which is possible for some people. But for most of us, once you get on a trajectory, it's very difficult to drop off and do something else. And because of that we don't know, I always encourage, if you can, to get that degree and then not use it or go on a different tangent once you've had it. Now, I'm also very conscious of the fact that a university is more than just getting a degree. It's a process. It's an exchange of culture. It's a place of learning, and it's a place of broadening your mind. It is one of those few places where you'll be relating with people from different parts of the country, different parts of your town, different parts of the world, and learning a lot from them. Not just about whatever you're going to study, but also about life skills and life experiences. And therefore, all that experience, all that knowledge, all that time spent, it's not just about the degree, it's the education you're getting, And therefore, that's why I encourage people. But I'm also very aware that we live in a world now where, one, not everyone is particularly interested or suited for higher education. And there are a lot of opportunities now to pursue your passion and a career outside the formal setting of a university or an institution of higher learning. That is true. And therefore, I will not anyway discourage anyone from pursuing that, as long as they understand the context into which they are, whatever direction they are taking, the pros and cons of it. People have told me, well, I would rather go and do apprenticeship, for example, than go to university and study a single subject. Right? I'm not going to mention any subject here, just in case people are, I offend anybody. But people have said that to me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get student debt to go and spend 4 years learning this. And I totally get that. But university is more than just what you're getting. But if you feel you'll be fulfilled in your career staying outside the educational system in terms of informal, then by all means, I think there are massive opportunities there, but they may just be limiting.
Right. I mean, I am also quite biased towards formal education, and for the exact same reasons that you have communicated here. It's not just about, going through the university. It's about the university going through you. That is what I often say. And it's about the culture. It's about the process. It's about broadening your horizon. And it's also about giving you that platform, that foundational platform from which you can do almost anything. Almost anything, because you have gone through that process. Now, you could go to university and study law and even end up opening a school. Now, does that mean your law degree is useless? Absolutely not. Or whatever degree it is you acquired, does that mean it's useless? It's not. It simply means that you are able to apply those skills also, transferable skills, and be able to, use that level of knowledge, level of education to even better do what you're doing. And we see that happening in Nigeria. Well, let me use Nigeria. In Nigeria today, we see graduates opening hairdressing salon. But when you go into that hairdressing salon, you can see the difference.
The approach is different.
The approach is totally different. And this is what I say. You see graduates going into fashion designing, opening all sorts of businesses. You go into those businesses, you can tell that there's something different about this business. And this is what I say, that, you can transfer all those skills because it has given you that foundation. Now, let's see what our audience are saying. Okay, Babajide is, someone is saying hello. Okay, Chidimat is applauding you, help us. Okay, thank you guys for being here as always.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so my fourth question.
Let me just say something before we finish that topic about higher education.
Please.
I was going to say something. I was going to say one of the things that I've found, which maybe not as relevant for a lot of people as they might, well, people might brush that aside and say it may never be relevant for them. But the thing about getting higher education is, one, it gives you a platform to go and get more degrees if you want to, right? It creates that room for you.
Yeah.
The second thing is, because again, like I said, you don't know what the future holds. When you are 18, 19, 20, and I know that all of us have gone through that, you see the world differently. By the time you hit your 30s, the world looks totally different. And one thing I always say to people is, the last thing you want is you have a very great opportunity in your life. And the only thing that stops you is not having some level of formal education to access that opportunity, right? Something you could have gone in for 3 years when you were 18, 19, 20, and would be a blur. It passes very quickly, and you've had it, you've moved on. And somebody says, if only you had this piece of paper, this opportunity to be up. I know life is unfair, and some people will say, well, that's totally unfair. I get that. But there's certain profession, there's certain opportunities that may be locked to you simply because you didn't make that sacrifice 5, 6 years ago. And the other thing that is very important is this: the older you get, and this is not about ageism, it's just responsibilities come, the more difficult it is to go back and get formal education. And people will say to me, well, I can always go back. That is true. But trust me, sitting down at the age of 19 to read for an exam and sitting at the age of 37, 38, 39 is very different. And it's something to always bear in mind, because, it gives you, like you said, it gives you those transferable skills. It's worth investing in. Yeah.
And at 18, 19, you have no bills to pay, you have no mortgage, you've got no children to worry about, you're not married, you don't have marital issues. So, like you said, at 30, to now want to go and, get that formal education, it's not that it's not possible. It is possible, but it's much easier when you're younger, isn't it? That's all you're saying. And
that
you don't want to shut the door to yourself when opportunities come down the road. And the only reason you can't access the opportunities because you lacked that formal education. I mean, so far, organizations like, I think, Google, Bank of America, and I think, is it Tesla also, they are saying, you know what, you can come in. But the question is, how far can you really go in those organizations without a formal, qualification? I guess that's a subject for another day.
I agree. I'm sorry, Mary. This is a very interesting topic, right? The other thing again is, I do agree that organizations allow you to come in, and that is absolutely fine. But they don't stop you also coming in if you have a degree.
Exactly.
So they don't stop you, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. And like I said before, yes, you can come in, but how far really can you go?
Yeah.
Like I said, a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Now, my fourth question, I just want to be sure if I'm just checking if we have a question for you. Okay. Okay. My fourth question. Passionate about people development, you believe one of the primary duties of a leader is to raise more leaders, and I totally agree with that. Now, the African continent, as we know it, is lagging behind in succession planning and in leadership development of its youths. Leaders should, take that responsibility for our youths, but are we doing that? So what's your message to the African continent with regards to leadership succession planning? If you could have 5 minutes with our president today, with any president in Nigeria or in Africa, beg your pardon, what will you be telling them today?
Where do we start? I think talking about leadership in Africa is always talking about Africa generally. I found recently is a very emotional topic, and it's a place you have to tread very carefully because people are very dug in on different sides as they look at issues. The first thing I would say is that the African continent is very diverse. We're not just one group of people. And therefore, when we are talking about leadership in Africa, we need to be careful because different countries are on different journeys, different paths, and they are experiencing different issues within the continent. Even though we have African Union, but the issues are very diverse. The other thing I would say is that I think developing leaders is not the problem. It's the quality that is the problem. Because I think every continent, every country in Africa, every organization has a process for developing leaders. It is what kind of leadership are we developing and the quality that is the question. Because the fact that there's a succession plan that goes on, people transmit from one role into another, means that there's a succession plan. But how do you identify those who are suitable for that journey? And how do you create opportunities so that there's a level playing field and the right quality gets in is the question. One of the things for me, when you talk about leadership in Africa, is the fact that if you look at the public and the private sector, you have to separate the two. Right? In the private sector, there is, and you can see that in some of the organizations that we have within Africa, there's no doubt the quality that we have at leadership level and the people that are aspiring and moving on to those roles. You can see in terms of technocrats, we have them, right? In terms of knowledge, skill set, we have the skill set. And you can see the results and the direction some of the private entities in Africa are going. You can see that. It's a different ballgame when you look at the public side of things. And one thing I find very interesting about Africa, right, is this. If you look at over the last 10 years, looking from 2019 to 2009, and you do a research on how many conferences, how many workshops, how many seminars, how many white papers, academic paper that have been written about how the problems and how to fix them. They will run into months and years of human life. But yet none of that so far has translated to any tangible achievement. And the question therefore is, why are we able to identify the problems of leadership, but unable to fix the problem? And every year, and bar this year because of the pandemic, we haven't had so many conferences and workshops. I tell you, every year there are hundreds of workshops and seminars where there are people churning out beautiful papers, beautiful solutions, beautiful, whatever it is that you want to call it, but somehow it doesn't translate. But we know why. What we lack is the ability to turn our ideas into action, into tangible action. And one of the key issues you have in leadership and succession planning in Africa is you have the issue of godfatherism. And the issue of godfatherism is such that unless you are an anointed one, your knowledge, your skill, or your expertise is not required. It is recognized, but it is not required, because the skill set needed for some of those positions is not your technical ability or your ability to understand, is your ability to manage the situation. And what situation are we talking about? We're talking about corruption and all that. And that is the problem you have with succession planning, because the other thing again is that the public institutions are not run on ideology. They are run based on personality. So when you try to infuse your ideology on a structure that is run on personality, unless the people that hold sway there buy into your ideology, it is fine, but they don't want it at a certain level. So it stops at the level. Beyond that, it doesn't follow. And I think one other point I'll make, which I think is quite important for us to understand when we talk about leadership in Africa, is the fact that the leader is not always 100% the problem. The face we see as the face of the challenge, it's a shiny object. It's not the only problem we have. Behind every leader in the public sphere, if we talk about political leaders now in Africa, there's a group of people that backs them, that supports them. And they do the will of the people that back them. And that includes their immediate family, their extended family, their village, and their political party. Those are the people that give them the pressure to do what they do. So for you to create a workable succession plan, you have to deal with these structures. And the question is, can we deal with them? I don't know.
Wow. That was a very loaded answer right there, because you actually hit the nail on the head. We do attend conferences, we do write a lot of papers, and we do have the human, capital in terms of, capability. We do have it. But somehow we have found ourselves as a nation and as a people in this mess, because it is a mess right now. And for me, I look at it and I'm like, okay, how do we move forward? Because it is quite complex right now. And I'll tell you what makes it even so, why it is so complex. I mean, you and I know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we have now found ourselves in this situation where everyone is a hustler, everyone is hustling, okay? Hustling for the next, loaf of bread. Where is visionary going to come from? Where is visionary? Where are the visionary leaders going to come from? Because we have this society where there's no safety net. A senator is hustling. A governor is hustling because they are trying to take care of tomorrow for themselves and, their families and their children yet unborn. So for me, that makes it so complex. And it is quite unfortunate because we do have the capability. We have the capability, but that's a subject for another day. So it would have been great to have a situation where we are intentional about really moving forward, really intentional. And we have had in the past a few technocrats, in office that have tried their best. I mean, may her soul rest in peace, Dora Kunyuli. That woman was exceptional. She was, totally outstanding. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Now, my next. Yeah.
One thing I would say, I would add to what I've said is the fact that the things we're talking about now about leadership, were the same thing that were being talked about, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, and that must tell us something. That if we are still talking about leadership, for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and we're talking of different generations. Within that period, we've seen the generation of Azikiwe. We've seen the generation of Azikiwe and Awolowo have gone. We've had Shehu Shagari there. We've had the military. We've had young people. We've had old people. We had some people, when Nigeria became independent, were not even born then. Now they are holding political office, but the character remains the same.
The same.
And it tells us that there's something that is wrong.
What's responsible for that then? How did it all look? Because look, my mother told me, my mother used to live on Lagos Island, and she said, if you put out your best clothing item on the clothesline, it will be there in the morning. That was how safe Lagos was. That was how beautiful Lagos was. And of course, you and I know there was a time when you could, confidently say, we had a community, and that your children were being, looked after by the community. So we once had a country, like Chinua Achebe said. Once there was a country. So where did we get it wrong in terms of, this whole idea of professionalism, civics, and all of that?
I think we've had a country, if you look at it in bits and pieces, but as a country that works as an entity, we've never had it. And I'll give you two examples. The first example is in my lifetime, and I'm not yet 60, right? So I'll leave my age blank, right? In my lifetime, when I first went to primary school, we were fed every afternoon. So you put coins down. I remember it used to cost us pennies to buy lunch at school. In my lifetime now, if you give a child of 5, 6, 100 naira, I'm not sure you'll be able to buy him quality food. We're talking of in a lifetime. I know how much the exchange rate was when I was 10. I know what it is now. We're talking of in a lifetime. This is not 2 lifetimes, in a lifetime. And the second thing is, when we talk about what has gone wrong, the fact of the matter is, when the benefit of being a political office holder outweighs any other career choice, when that is the best career choice you can have, right? If you really want to make money, then there's something materially wrong, right? And the last thing I would say is what I told you earlier, is the fact that if we continue to look at the political office holders as shiny object, we miss the point. It is the support structure that puts them under pressure to do what they do. If you're a political holder, you don't deliver for your village, you don't deliver for your family, you don't deliver for your state, you are a failure. And until you begin to hold people to professional accounts, not because they're my brother, you are there and I want you to be professional, not to satisfy me or our village, then we begin to make progress. But let's leave that for now. Because
I know. And it just goes to show that it's about the mindset, right? It's about the mindset. Okay. My fifth question, my context to my fifth question. You are a published author and avid writer. You enjoy writing for children and young adults. You published a play titled The First Lady's Poultry in 2018. Talking about leveraging the lockdown, you did do that well, didn't you? You published another book, a coloring book during the pandemic, titled Fruits and Vegetable of the World for Parents and Children, a collaborative effort with your teenage daughter. Now, writing a coloring book sounds like something from the 80s and 90s, especially with digital all around us. What's the rationale behind, that choice, given that a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old probably has a phone today? So what's the rationale behind this?
I think the first thing, it shows my age. I think the whole idea about the book was, so we're sitting down during the pandemic and we thought to ourselves, on one side, you have parents at home who are not stuck, but they are home, right? There's nowhere to go. And then you have very young kids who are stuck at home, nowhere to go. And the normal thing is for people to play on their laptop and their their tablets and all that. And we thought, what can we do that will create some form of activity for parents and kids to do together? And this idea of a coloring book came up between my daughter and I were talking about it. And we thought, okay, instead of just having a coloring book there, just a coloring book, what can we wrap it around that will also make it not just fun, but educative and something that will bring families together? So we thought, hey, fruits and vegetables of the world would be interesting. One, it's a fun activity to do together. So this is a coloring book where you actually do something, switch off your TV and your laptop and your tablet. The second thing is you learn, and they were not just ordinary fruits. So we had fruits there that are not common to Europe, are not common to the UK. So something that would pique your interest and say, what kind of fruit is this? And especially if you are doing A to Z, you get to a few alphabets, you are struggling to find what fruit fits in there. And the third thing really for us is that parents are always talking about encouraging their kids to eat fruit and veg. And therefore, when you do this, hopefully get to do an activity together, get to read about this fruit, because we deliberately did not include anything about the fruits in the book. So the idea is to encourage people to go and find out about the fruits, some of the more exotic ones.
Okay.
And then to bring them together to now say, oh, by the way, fruits and veg is quite good for you as a parent, as a child. And that's why we came up with that idea. And to be honest, all the parents that have bought it have had positive feedback about it.
That's good.
And the interesting thing about the book is you can give it as a gift anytime throughout the year. So it's not just linked to Christmas or New Year or birthdays. So it's been good. Really enjoyed it.
And it's interesting that at least you can say this is something that came out of the pandemic, right?
Yeah. And people, I can show you a copy of the book.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And one thing I found quite interesting is the whole process of getting the book out has also been enlightening for us, because first we have to come up with the idea. We have to research different fruits depending on the alphabet, and then have to get somebody to now do the artwork together, and then putting all that together, getting a publisher to do that. It was a worthwhile venture during the pandemic.
And of course, I'm just trying to picture you and your daughter walking through this project. That must have been an opportunity to, bond even further as a parent with your daughter. So how did that feel? How did the process feel for you?
Well, it was kind of division of labor. So what she did was to go and find the fruits, right? So I said, look, I need A to Z. Go and find it. So she will come up with different names and say, for example, you, and say, which one should we use for this? And say, okay, let's take this. So there's a form of division of labor in the process. But you're right. It was good doing something together.
Yeah. I'm sure that was fun. Let's see. Do we have any questions? Okay. Good evening. Interesting discussion, host and guest. Will this mean there is no hope left for us, for our fellow Africans? I think she was referring to our conversation earlier. So do you have anything to say to that?
No, I wouldn't say there's no hope. I think that there is hope, but we have to stop having this idea that professionals in diaspora, talking to professionals in diaspora, and having long conversation is going to provide a solution, because we're simply sitting down and telling ourselves what we've already known. It's the next step that we need to work out. And whether we have the will to make that change is what I think is lacking.
Yeah, because we know the problems and we know the solutions to the problem. I mean, there's something I say, go to any markets in Nigeria, go to Onyigbo market, go to Yaba market. A woman in the market will give you the solution for Nigeria. Trust me, she will give you the solution for Nigeria. If we do this, if we do that, if we can just do this, if we can just do that. So for me, I think we just need to love this country sometimes. It's not even having any degree or having any years of experience. It's just to love your country and do the right thing for your country. And Mobila here is saying replacement planning, not succession planning, is the African way.
Yes, I like that one. Replacement planning. Yes, it is selecting who is going to take over from you before you leave.
That's a good one.
anointing them.
Yeah, that is what she's saying. Okay. Now, the topic today is critical moves for professional and personal growth. And I want to believe that one of the critical moves we can make as a professional is volunteering. Volunteering is so important, especially when you're trying to learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about volunteering, after answering this question in terms of it being a critical move? However, you are a very busy man, yet you make time for 4 charities. Why is volunteering important to you? And why might it be important for professional traction?
So let me take the second question first.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's important for traction? I think one of the things I found in my journey as into volunteering is the fact that there are many people who have this idea that volunteers are generally people who are retired and a bit older, and therefore they have a bit of time. In fact, they have too much time, so they say, "What can I do with my time?" They go and volunteer, but that's not actually true. There's a community of volunteers, and when you get in there, you'll be amazed at the quality, the diversity in terms of ethnicity, age, and the sheer quality of knowledge that exists in that community. And they are so welcoming and so supportive. But until you get in there, you don't see that. That's the first thing. You will never walk that journey alone if you volunteer. There will always be people in that journey with you. The second thing is there's a massive amount of knowledge and expertise you gain from volunteering. And so if you look at people in corporate, you can find your path is blocked, right? Your path is blocked because you don't have enough experience or knowledge to move to the next level. In the third sector, in the not-for-profit sector, there's a lot of opportunities, and they're always willing to give you a lot more than your experience would suggest. So it's a good way of building up your competence for your career, of be able to show that you can do this and translate that into your career. People sometimes don't get that. The third thing is...
Can I just reiterate that? So what you're saying is that in the not-for-profit sector, you are more exposed to you've been pushed, to take on more, taken out of your comfort zone, essentially.
Yes. So there's the push and the pull. There will be opportunities there where they are willing to give you that chance to step up to take that responsibility. Either because the fact is the voluntary sector is not awash with a lot of people, right? They cannot afford. The truth is, a lot of charities cannot afford to pay what the corporate sector will pay. So they're always willing to give you that knowledge, to give you that experience, to give you that responsibility, given the background you already have, to say, well, this person can actually grow into this role. And you also have a lot of support. So you may have a very strong, experienced CEO or a very strong, experienced number of employees. There may not be many, but the few they are very experienced. So they will hold your hand, they will develop you. So you have a very big opportunity to go there and take on managerial. Say, for example, you're not a manager in your day-to-day job, but you aspire to be a leader. You can go to the charity sector, take on a managerial role on voluntary basis, apply yourself, and bring that skill back to the office, and bring that to your corporate career and begin to apply that. So there are massive opportunities there. The third thing, which is also very important, is the fact that a lot of people believe that if you tell them, you can volunteer, say, well, my skill, they don't want my skill. My skill will not be required. But actually, that's not true. A lot of the skills we have are transferable, and you can move them across and use them. But sometimes we have a closed mindset. We look at it as a like for like. So if I'm doing this and I want to volunteer, I can't do this in the charity sector, but that's not true. You can transfer skills. You can also create a totally new career for yourself just in the charity sector. While your day job, you're working as an accountant, you can actually go to the charity sector and learn fundraising, learn about social media, and grow a career from there simply by volunteering, right? But it's looking for the right kind of opportunity for you and the right kind of organization. But there are massive opportunities to grow your career. And I think that is sometimes what is missing, especially for young professionals. It's a good way to pick up skills, to build your network, and over and above everything else, there is a feeling you get that you will not get. For me, let me use that personal experience. You will not get in your day-to-day job. there's a feeling you get when you're adding value to people's lives and doing something really meaningful. You cannot quantify that in pennies. In pounds, you cannot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with you, because it's like being purposefully engaged. Yeah.
So you asked me a question. Why do I do what I do?
Yeah.
One of the things for me is about giving back. At the end of the day, what I do is about giving back, and I totally enjoy it. The UK has been good to me and my daughter, right? And I made a decision. I think it was in 2006 now, I believe. I think it was 2015 or 2016 that I made a decision that I wanted to start giving back. And the fact is, I have a lot of knowledge and experience that I can bring to the table in the charity sector. They might not be able to afford my salary, right, if I was to be working full time, but I have the opportunity to add value. And sometimes when I finish my day job and I go for a meeting in the evening for one of the charities, the pleasure I get from those 3 hours in the evening is way above the pleasure I get during the day. Because when you sit there and you talk to other volunteers and you see the report of what you are doing, how is practically impacting people's lives, you cannot but feel energized to do more.
Absolutely.
So,
and it is important to give back. I mean, this show is about sharing knowledge, and that is why we have knowledgeable people like you on the show. What we're doing today is probably changing somebody's life, is impacting somebody's life. Someone who maybe was thinking, oh, I should go and volunteer. No, maybe I should go and volunteer. They're probably listening to you right now and thinking, you know what? I really need to make that decision today and go and volunteer. There's a group I run called Ninja Professional. A lady came to me and said, Mary, I had abandoned my PhD, but you know what? I feel so energized in this group. I've picked it up again. So when we do what we do, we honestly don't know who is being impacted. You know, we honestly don't know. We just have to do the best we can with what we are doing. Now, talking about being knowledgeable and having to make critical moves. What else can you encourage us with in terms of critical moves? We've talked about volunteering. We've talked about having a mentor. Can you talk more about having a mentor? Because I feel it's so important to have a mentor, whether it's for our personal lives or for our professional lives. Mentoring is key, because you're, getting someone to literally hold your hands. They've gone ahead of you. They've, experienced some failures that they can potentially, help you from, falling into as well, those pitfalls. So what can you say about mentoring?
So for me, I believe mentors are good. Let me just say that before I put my own view forward. I think mentors are good. I also think that perhaps something that is very important that sometimes we miss is that as senior professionals, especially Africans in diaspora, we need to make ourselves available for younger professionals to be able to approach us. When I came to the UK, I didn't have that kind of support. And I made a lot of lateral moves that maybe were not required. If there was a senior professional that really stepped forward to say, look, you have fantastic experience. This is what you should do.
Yeah.
Or let me share my journey with you and learn from it. It will make a difference. One of the reasons why I volunteer with a charity called Working Options. Working Options is a charity that goes to schools, sixth formers. And we stand there, we share our story with them. And I cannot tell you how many young people come afterwards to say, I was blessed by what you said. Can you tell me a bit about this? And some of them are second generation immigrants, and I think that is what is missing. And sometimes that's what we lack within our community. We don't always are very open to share our journey with people.
We're not.
And therefore, we don't give people the opportunity of benefiting from our mistakes so that they can learn and move forward. I think it's very important for us to do that.
It is extremely important. And that is why I have that group called Ninja Professional. That is what I do here, because I don't think there's any wisdom in letting anyone come in behind me, make the same exact mistakes I made. I'm a professional and a businesswoman, and I felt exactly like that because I mean, I've been in England for 30 years. I was a businesswoman, I was a professional, but I felt I could have benefited from a community.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about what I do right now as an agilist, okay? We promote a lot of communities. We create communities. We are encouraging people to come into our communities so that they can come and learn and be mentored and, come into the space to take on new careers, because there's just no wisdom in it. And I just hope that people will be much more open and much more approachable, because on this platform, we talk about the lean agile mindset. Lean is about, avoiding waste or minimizing waste.
Absolutely.
And for me, if you have all this knowledge and you can't share it, it is waste as far as I'm concerned. If you have all this knowledge and you have a community that cannot benefit from it, then I'm afraid we're not leveraging that knowledge enough. So let's see what else. I've got 3. We have questions here. Okay. With all this, let's see. With all of this said, how does anyone in Nigeria apply most of what the guest had said to Nigeria, bearing in mind the economic situation in Nigeria? In other words, you're a professional, right? And you want people to apply their skills, but Nigeria is not a conducive environment. How do we go about that? Over to you, Harold.
Well, I think I understand to a certain extent that not everything that applies in England would apply in Nigeria, but the principles are still the same. One of the things I said earlier was about developing your career. I'm quite sure that within Nigeria, there are opportunities to develop and to learn new skill sets outside working for your office, working in your career, that there are organizations there that you can also develop your career. But I do agree, and I appreciate the point you're making, that not everything that I have used as an example will be applicable in Nigeria, but the principles will still be the same.
Yeah, the principles are fundamentally the same. The environment is difficult. You can almost sometimes say that the environment sets you up for failure. But then again, I say to people, in spite of all that difficulty, I mean, look at what is happening within the technology space, within the digital space. Look at what our young people are doing. And then sometimes I think we just have to be intentional about it and be resourceful to rise above the conditions around us. I mean, not everybody has the, tenacity to do that, but people are doing it. But we can agree that, the environment can be much more favorable. I totally agree with that. It can be much more favorable.
And if you want us to do a one-to-one afterwards, I'm quite happy for us to take that conversation offline.
And we've got just a couple of minutes left. I don't think we have any more questions. Okay. I must really commend Mary in this regard. I just chatted with her. I just chatted her up on LinkedIn. She called me up and, oh, that's nice. And by mere talking with her, I have decided my next career. Oh, this is what Harold was saying about being approachable. We must be approachable. I felt I could have gotten more help as a young professional growing up. I didn't get it. And I want the young ones coming behind me to, be able to approach me. And I hope I am approachable. I try to be approachable. I put myself out there. So I'm happy to hear that from you, Chidima. We'll talk later. So I think we're going to call it an evening here.
Okay.
So
can I just say, sorry, maybe, before we go, can I just say, and in that spirit, there are a few initiatives which I also think are quite important.
Yes.
So if you look at within the treasury space, and within transactional finance, you don't have a lot of ethnic minorities there. And that is a place where I'm hoping with other people from ethnic minority background, we can start to do something to again, encourage people to say, this is a career path that you can follow. But there's a lot that all of us can do in terms of
absolutely
access available.
Yeah. Please connect with him on LinkedIn. As you can see, he's very approachable. He's a volunteer. And connect with him on LinkedIn. And the books he wrote, they are on Amazon. And this is where we're going to call it an evening. To my audience, always showing up, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Tell your network about this channel. We're doing wonderful things here, and there's more to come. And we will be having Mr. Orimalade again. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Adesola, for investing your time with us today. Bye-bye.
Bye.